Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of the Anchor Group podcast. We've got another great one for you. Today, joining me on the podcast is Robert Rand from iPaaS.com. iPaaS.com is a middleware platform that we have helped use in the BigCommerce and Shopify ecosystems. Now, today, Robert's going to be talking a little bit about iPaaS.com, but we're also going to announce a new partnership between iPaaS.com and Anchor Group. It's called the BigCommerce NetSuite Accelerator Program. And so if you're on NetSuite and you're thinking about going with BigCommerce, you're definitely going to want to stay tuned for that. So let's dive in.
Hey, Caleb here with a quick interruption. Got a NetSuite headache that needed solved yesterday? Then don't sweat it and don't pull your hair out either, because we have something called our 30-minute fix. And that's exactly what it sounds like. 30 minutes with our NetSuite wizard, Mitch, who is there solving problems that are driving you crazy right now. Reports pulling wrong, workflows not working, CSV errors you can't explain. Get it fixed free of charge, no strings attached. Spots are limited, so go to anchorgroup.tech/30min fix. That's anchorgroup.tech/30min fix. Get it fixed and get back to your day. All right, now back to the episode.
Well, Robert, thanks for joining the podcast today.
No, my pleasure. And you already told everyone it's going to be a great episode. So I've got to perform today.
That's right. We got standards on this episode. That's for sure. Well, Robert, just to give everybody who's listening to this, whether they're on their commute home from work, maybe they're on the treadmill at work before they hop into the office, right? Let's give them a feel for kind of who you are and how you ended up at iPaaS.com.
Oh boy, this could be a long episode. No, so I head up partnerships and alliances here at iPaaS.com, but I've been in the industry for maybe longer than I want to admit. I didn't have any of these gray hairs when we started. I helped to lead a digital agency for about a decade, dealing with design development and digital marketing in the e-commerce space, brought brands like Swiss Gear and Invicta watches into e-commerce. Certainly worked with lots of organizations that you've never heard of. Some of my favorites, that especially in the B2B space, where they're behind the scenes in the supply chain. And from there, I went to head partnerships at an integration platform and a web hosting firm. And I joined the team here about 2.5 years ago to lead the charge and bringing iPaaS.com further into the market. Through relationships like the relationship that we have with Anchor Group. And really, my history with the company started in my agency days when they were more of a systems integrator, and they got tired of dealing with the same integration challenges with the available technology. And while I was off in the next, next chapters in my professional journey, they were creating what's now iPaaS.com, a more modern, next generation integration hub to really, help propel businesses forward without a lot of the pain that they were used to seeing organizations experience.
Yeah, now that's wonderful context. When you say iPaaS.com is a hub, what do you mean by that? Can you explain that a little bit?
Absolutely. So when you think about integrating software, normally you're thinking about what we'd consider a point-to-point integration. You're going to get software A talking to software B. And at that point, uh, as you scale a business, you find that you wind up with a lot of those point-to-point connectors. Often they're either black box or they're completely custom, and it just becomes a bit of a game of whack-a-mole to try to upkeep that and deal with anytime something doesn't work properly, some data gets stuck or fails to flow successfully, whatever's happening. And trying to maintain those as different systems are changing and upgrading, APIs are evolving. And so iPaaS.com takes a different approach. We sit in the middle as a data hub. Every system that we integrate with communicates with our hub as basically the integration is a universal translator of sorts. And so when we think about an e-commerce platform, that will translate and transform the data on the way into iPaaS.com. Any issues with the data are going to get caught at that point. They're going to retry automatically. You're going to know what's going on, real-time notifications and root cause analysis, and it's all very proactive. And then once that data is in our hub, that data can go to as many systems as you need. And so, for instance, if you've got an e-commerce order coming down, you might go to one system for accounting, one system for fulfillment, another system, a CRM, so the sales team has visibility, and you don't need to get that order over and over again. And if you change your CRM, all the other integrations that are hooked up to the hub stay intact. You're just turning on a new spoke to the hub for a different CRM, turning on a different integration from our marketplace, and turning off the old one when you're ready. And so you go from these more brittle connectors to something that's a lot more flexible to evolve with as everyone's tech stacks continue to grow.
Yeah, and I think that's important to note. Like, tech stacks are going to continue to grow and develop, and the software you use, their capabilities are going to change at different rates of speed, different times. Not like everything's going to improve at the same time. And I think that's the real power of going with middleware like iPaaS.com is because, as you said, you plug in your ERP to it and say human resources software you're using updates that end. Well, you still have the ERP connected to iPaaS.com, and everything doesn't immediately break. You're just having to maybe rebuild or adjust one half of the total equation just from the human resources platform like ADP to the iPaaS middleware instead of needing to redo the entire thing. And I think that's the power. And that's what we've seen. And Robert, I know our teams have worked on projects in the past that deal not only with NetSuite and BigCommerce or NetSuite and e-commerce, but there's also other platforms like ADP, for example, or POS systems that they have had to integrate with as well. And I know that's a superpower essentially that we see at Anchor Group as real value in the middleware type
You know,
system.
and I think that it's fair to say nobody knows exactly what systems they're going to be using in the next few years as it relates to artificial intelligence to AI, but there are outcomes that you want, and it's really about data being siloed. And different departments having access to different data uniquely, whether we're talking finance or operations or sales or marketing or fulfillment and so on and so forth. And so, for instance, when I think point of sale, you know, sometimes your e-commerce orders are probably syncing up with some kind of marketing stack, like a Klaviyo or Dot Digital or Mailchimp or something. But often, if you've got retail point of sale, those orders are siloed, and so you'll be sending emails or SMS messages to shoppers saying, "Hey, we haven't seen you lately. Here's a coupon. Come on back." Meanwhile, they were in the store yesterday making a purchase, and you see these kinds of outcomes all the time in different areas, left hand, right hand. We have an integration with Avalara for sales tax exemption certificate management. And you could imagine that, that doesn't sound like the most exciting thing, but often, the accounting team knows if somebody has an exemption certificate on file, if it's a nonprofit or government or wholesale buyer. But do all of the sales and account reps know, and do they know if it's expired or not? And so being able to get that data into the necessary systems so that everybody can work cohesively, without having to, wait in line for somebody in another department to get back to you on it, or toss the customer around in that sense. That there's so many different outcomes that we see in these situations that become important. I mean, on the B2B side, we recently launched an integration with Payfabric with an accounts receivable system, and in B2B, often people are paying on net terms, and you see that that a lot of the orders they're not paying in the e-commerce checkout, but now the merchant's waiting for check in the mail, or they're waiting for the person to catch someone over the phone and share a credit card over the phone, which is not the most PCI compliant anymore anyway. And just our ability to take that order, get it into Payfabric, and have them send a link where the shopper can pay through ACH credit debit on the spot, whenever they're ready, and keep it all online and organized and nice and neat. And so there's just these different business outcomes for different users in different situations. But getting the customer data, the order data, the product data really unified across a growing, evolving tech stack is more important than ever.
Mhm. Yeah, and at Anchor Group, we are a NetSuite Alliance partner. We're a certified BigCommerce partner, and we're a Shopify agency as well. So we deal with a lot of different e-commerce platforms, and each project we deal with also generally has, others third-party type software that's at play as well. A few of which you've just mentioned, and that's one of the reasons why at Anchor Group we like iPaaS.com. Robert, you guys over there is because of how essentially the middleware, we're able to at times, ERP data can be very complex, but we need to essentially shapeshift it in some ways so that it can fit into the e-commerce engine. That could look a variety of different ways, but we've successfully, been able to do that using the iPaaS.com platform. And so, Robert, I know our companies have worked on some projects in the past, and you and I both wanted to connect today to announce that Anchor Group and iPaaS.com are going to be partnering together on something called the BigCommerce NetSuite Accelerator Program. That's a really exciting thing. We're coming together, our companies are coming together to partner on, and essentially it's set up to help companies that have kind of been hesitant to modernize their e-commerce website or update their e-commerce website or buyer portals online. Maybe they've been hesitant and don't quite know or feel comfortable taking that next step. We've put together a program together to help remove some of the clouds and reduce the ambiguity with it, to just make it clear, easier to understand, to be more upfront with the way things can go. Robert, thoughts on that?
Oh, well, absolutely. uh, Over time, what we've seen again and again is that our teams together have no problem getting these projects up and running. That Anchor Group using iPaaS.com as the middleware, and with Anchor Group's internal understanding of both NetSuite and BigCommerce, the kind of project where your team thrives, where really there's a standard at play. Because we started the episode a little bit thinking in that vein, of standards. And so where a lot of businesses, they know that they need to modernize, but that risk of, what's that project going to look like, and is it going to be as successful as they want, often leads to an amount of analysis paralysis, that it becomes hard to move forward. And with what we've achieved, really what we've seen is that there's a playbook, and there's technology here that's ready to rock and roll. And so, it's not only getting a beautiful big commerce site that's highly functional, it's being able to make sure that if they need the product data, including prices and inventory, to come down from NetSuite into the ecom, they need order data to flow back for fulfillment and shipping and tracking information, and order status updates to come back to the ecom as the order's fulfilled on the ERP side. And they need the customer data to reconcile through that process, and maybe some of the B2B data too, the company data, and maybe quote requests or other things through the mix. Maybe price lists around different customers that are going to be billed a bit differently. That we've solved for these sorts of things together. And iPaaS.com is provided at a flat monthly rate, so it's a predictable expense. Your team knows what the implementation is going to look like, and so you're in a great position to provide, as you've been, a menu of options where people know what they're looking at, and you can obviously tailor around any unique scope, but uh, you're demystifying the entire process the
Yeah,
way
and
that the market is expecting.
yeah, and I love when it's put that way, demystifying the process, right? Because a lot goes in to migration from an old engine, an old e-commerce engine, into something like BigCommerce. And the reason we chose to partner with, steer people towards BigCommerce is because of just how powerful you and I, in our areas have seen BigCommerce, how well it has served clients and merchants in the past, whether they're specifically in the B2B realm, but also many cases in the B2C realm as well. And so when we speak with clients on the agency side, people who are wanting to go through migration, that integration piece can get really confusing. And partnering together through this we're able to, like you said, demystify it from the iPaaS integration side all the way to the Anchor Group development side of both those iPaaS data flows along with the BigCommerce front end. So really, I see this program for companies that have wanted to kind of leave the Stone Age or know that, hey, they're losing their competitive edge. Other companies in the industry have modernized and now they need to play some catch up. This is a wonderful opportunity for companies like that to hedge a little bit on the risk tolerance, where we're going to be very transparent in what's going to go into the project, and pricing around it, exactly the deliverables. And actually, you can, if you're watching this online, whether it's on Spotify, on YouTube, you can go into the show notes and we're going to have links there. We have landing pages, one pagers, PDFs, stuff like that, where you can go and find out more information about what's specifically included in this. Just as a general overview, we got 3 different tiers, and you can go through essentially a chart to figure out what tier most fits your needs. Reach out to us and we can walk you through the rest of the process. But we essentially have a tier if you need a more basic website to bring you into the modern age of e-commerce, we got a tier for that. If you need a website plus some moderate enhancements, some features to help you be a little more competitive, we have a tier for that. If you need a fully custom website, maybe you want to go a BigCommerce headless route, maybe you want really complex integrations, have complex integration needs, we also have a tier for that. We try to make the pricing as transparent as possible. That way, if there are some people who have want less risk on a project at your company, at a merchant's company, we just have a way to be very clear about that.
Well, and thinking about the day after launch, I think it's just as important that what's being set up in that process is sustainable. So with iPaaS.com, our platform is managed and maintained in the cloud. It's an auto scaling, modern mock system. It's software as a service. It's SaaS. So we're responsible for the uptime and security and what have you. But thinking a step further, as APIs are changing at systems like BigCommerce, we're maintaining those integrations in the marketplace that we have. So you don't have to rewrite the whole connection between systems over and over again as things are changing. You want to get another piece of software into the mix. You want to use a product information management system or a CRM or something else that you want, flowing data, turn on another spoke to the hub. NetSuite's already hooked up. BigCommerce is already hooked up. You're just getting data flowing with one more system. And so in terms of investing into the future, having that both short-term and long-term predictability and having kind of that manifest destiny to keep making positive steps forward and having that momentum is really, really important to today's business.
Yeah, Robert, thank you for sharing your thoughts on the power of iPaaS.com, really, as it's going to be used in part of this BigCommerce NetSuite Accelerator Program. And I know you and I both think this is going to be a wonderful opportunity for many merchants out there to help bring them into more of a modern era for their e-commerce engine. Now, Robert, as we kind of close things up here, where can people learn more about you or iPaaS.com?
Well, I'd tell them to check out LinkedIn, and we can put a link in the show notes if you'd like. But for the company, if you were to send people to iPaaS.com, IPAAS.com, integration platform as a service, they'll be able to learn more about the company, schedule a demo, learn more about all the various integrations and opportunities that are available. And really, I appreciate so much you having me on today to talk about the accelerator and really, how we're taking the existing success that our teams have together and propelling forward, making it even more accessible, even easier for additional users to take advantage of.
Yeah, definitely. And if you are interested in learning more about the BigCommerce NetSuite Accelerator powered by iPaaS.com and Anchor Group, check out the show notes below. We're going to have links to a couple of pages and some resources. You can check those out down there. And if it's right for you, you can just reach out to us, reach out to myself, reach out to Robert. And of course, there are going to be different resources in the show notes below that you can find links and reach out to us there as well. But Robert, thank you for joining, and thank you for sharing just some of your knowledge and understanding of the middleware system. And looking forward to having you on another episode sometime.
It was my pleasure today. It'll be my pleasure in the future. Thanks again.
Thank you.